Hi, my name is Tim Karl. I'm from Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The title of my poster is Reconceptualizing the Model of Formal Education, Utilizing Montessori as an Evolutionary Epistemology. And this is based on my doctoral research from my dissertation, in which I looked at what is learning and how do we build and acquire knowledge. And sort of the impetus for this was when I first started by looking at formal education and the types of reform that we've tried to institute in education over the years. And it seems like we go through this constant cycle of this is the next big thing, and then suddenly everybody doesn't like it, and we end up with educational systems that we're not really happy with. So I said, well, rather than focus on the adults and the power and the money and the politics of how we reform education typically, why don't we take a step back and let's look at what actually is learning and how do we as human beings acquire knowledge. So to try and answer that question, the first thing I did was to look at the philosophy of Karl Popper, and his philosophy, which is generally known as an evolutionary epistemology, seems to answer a lot of these questions related to, as human beings, what constitutes knowledge and how do we acquire this over time. And after doing that, the next thing I said is, well, are there any educational systems or approaches out in the real world right now that seem to embody these principles that Popper talked about? And this is where the Montessori system of early childhood education comes into play, because I argue that there are many practices in Montessori that already look like and follow and have similar approaches to what Popper argued for. Then, for the final piece of that, I took these two approaches, Popper's philosophy and the Montessori system of education, and said, if we combine these two, what might a model for educational reform look like? And that is where I have my model, the Education as Evolutionary Epistemology model, or EEE model, in which I suggest 12 specific areas for reform or approaches to reform centered around 3 different areas. One has to do with redesigning curricula and assessment. The other has to do with retraining the educators, the teachers, the administrators, and the parents as well, who are all members of participants in the learning environment. And then the third area has to do with suggestions related to restructuring the actual system of education. And that constitutes the model, which leaves lots of room for applying it in real-world practices. At least theoretically it's possible, and if we can somehow overcome some of the other constraints on that, we'd have a much better educational system. Thank you very much.